Hello, and welcome everybody to Chalkcast episode 97, our biggest Chalkcast yet. Okay, I don't even have enough boxes for how big this episode is. Okay, it's getting a little bit ridiculous, so I had to squeeze Johnny and CJ in one box. But hey, we have our normal hosts, me, Johnny, and CJ, and we're joined by four very special guests. We have Arnold, who is the CEO of Gen.G. And Arnold, where exactly are you at right now?
I'm in Los Angeles right now.
Los Angeles, not bad. I'm sure it's beautiful over there.
It's actually kind of chilly, but you know.
What's chilly? What's chilly for
LA? Like 50, 60.
That's freedom units.
10 degrees Celsius. Got it. Okay, that's not chilly, bro. Come on. That's like a Scottish summer out there. You're loving life. But yeah, I reckon it's probably a bit chillier where Jeff is at. I would have to guess Jeff. We've got Jeff here from COO of Resolve has been kind enough to join us. We didn't think you're gonna have a camera here, so yeah. Good job there.
It's a bit scuffed. I've got my phone balanced on top of two glasses in my hotel room. So yeah.
You're at you're Wembley, is that right? I saw your tweet about it. Hanging out.
Yeah. At Wembley with the England team. We are filming some stuff tomorrow, which was supposed to be an announcement video, but I saw you guys laughing about that last time.
We'll get to the FIFA stuff later. There was a little bit of miscommunication, I think, globally on some of those things.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, we'll talk about it later, Brandon. But we got Brendy from CEO of Chiefs as well. We're covering everything OCE. So I guess you're representing the minor regions as well. You're a fellow OCE time zone enjoyer. I think it's 8 a.m. for you right now.
Yeah, pretty early where I'm at.
Yeah, it's a little bit rough, but look, I'm glad that I've got someone that can appreciate getting up early, and these guys, they're comfortable. What is it? Nighttime for Rizzo is probably after. Oh, actually, no, it's nighttime for Johnny. Afternoon for Rizzo, getting into the night. It's tough down in Australia. We've got to do what we've got to do. And we've also got this other guy over here who's Rizzo. Do we need to talk about that other one? We've had him on before.
I think he deserves an introduction. Of course, it's Ferra, the GOAT, the greatest coach of all time, maybe potentially.
Ooh,
I don't know if he give himself that much praise, but I might give it to him.
No, I mean, I look like the clown in the middle of the army meme, with all the CEOs and CEO, and I'm just the CEO of nothing here. So, but I guess I joined.
Equally important, Ferra.
What does that make us?
We needed the French rep.
Yeah.
No, but you guys are the host. I'm not the host. I mean, at this point, I might be.
We're just the clown host. But okay, so we need to explain what's going on here because a lot of the regulars will know what's happening. We a lot of org stuff going on in the off season. But CJ, can you explain for anyone who's been kind of not really paying attention? It's off season after all. Why is there a Chalkcast roundtable with a bunch of CEOs, COOs, and Ferra, the coach of KC? What is going on?
Yeah, look, we've called this our most important. It's our biggest episode by weight of having thousands of guests here, but it's also probably our most important because I guess as an esport, we're in a bit of an interesting spot at the moment. Certainly from an organization perspective, it's crisis mode. It's never we haven't really had a situation like this before with so many orgs leaving, and not just I guess fringe orgs. We often have at the end of a season or teams that don't make worlds, they go, okay, we'll drop out. We'll see you guys next season. But now we're actually having some pretty big players in the game, including some guys here that have been vocal about it. But the likes of, your world champs winning a world championship, backing out. You've got a BDS who've, made the last 2 LAN finals, 3 LAN finals if you include the Esports World Cup backing out as well. And you've just had Endpoint, Luminosity, OG, TSM, Cloud9 are in and out. There's all these teams that are sort of dropping out of the esport itself, and not just for, until the next season starts, but just in general. They don't see where the direction is, I guess, for the esport. And there's a lot of orgs that are still, I guess, involved, like these guys here, but pretty, I guess, disgruntled about the direction that, I guess, it's going, about the communication from Epic, obviously, who own Rocket League now and have for a while. And just about, the sustainability of the esport itself. So these guys, we thought we've covered for all corners of the globe, I guess you could. We've got obviously our French rep with Ferra. We've got the EU side of things with Jeff. We've got Arnold, who can really talk about I guess esports as a whole. Obviously, Gen.G is pretty massive, but obviously the NA side of things as well for the Rocket League. And we've got Brendan as well, who's, I guess, can talk about the minor regions, broadcast coverage, and stuff from that perspective. So I think it's a really important episode that we need to have, and really, really thankful that we get these four guys on board.
Yeah, so let's just go through all the individual instances then, because I think it'll help the listeners to understand the different circumstances that everybody's in. So if we start with Arnold, you guys at Gen.G had a pretty successful season, number 2 in NA for the most part, and then released the team, if I'm not mistaken, and now you've picked up a new team. So could you summarize like what's going on there? And I know you tweeted out some other stuff related to sustainability of esports. So what's the Gen.G situation right now in the off season?
Yeah, I think we kind of needed to reset what we're about. And the guys that I worked with kind of over the last few years coming into Rocket League, like I only have positive things to say about it. The biggest reset that we felt that we needed to hit was one, it's easy to come in here and be like, oh, salaries are too high and these kind of things. But I mean, I'm in a bunch of different esports with different levels of salaries. That's fine. I mean, it's the part that like I want to get more excited about is like, where are we going? Like, what should we get excited about? What should we build towards? And I think for a long time, Rocket League as a whole, we got really lucky with kind of having kind of the exceptions to the rule over the last few years. But Rocket League as a whole just went in a weird place, where players don't want to show up for tournaments. They don't want to do content. They don't want to wear the decals because, there's placebo and all these things. And none of the orgs were going to fix it. And now we just kind of almost are trying to fix it when it's too late. I think for us, we wanted to reset and say, like, look, let's just be upfront about where we're at. Let's just be upfront about wanting to get to the other side. And honestly, like I've had very pleasant experiences working with the folks at Blast, working with the folks at Psyonix, and working with the folks, I guess now Epic too. So the part that is frustrating is like, it's not just us. We're kind of holding on and thinking that there's going to be change, but it's unclear where it's going. And so for me, I can't invest into that, right? Like as somebody that has to allocate capital across the different teams, content and everything else, why would I invest into something where I have no idea where it's going, except that there's just going to be less stuff and it's going to be more difficult. So it's just been a big reset overall. And, any kind of specific topic, I'm happy to jump on. And I have a lot of gripes about the scene, but, that's probably the biggest one that I have.
Yeah, what about you, Jeff, with your situation with Resolve? Could you relate to what Arnold is saying here? Because you guys have been very vocal on Twitter, which is very helpful for people to get a little bit of understanding of what's going on behind the scenes. But for the non-Twitter users, what are you really focused on right now with Resolve and with the Rocket League in general?
Yeah, it's a really interesting time, I think. We obviously haven't had a roster now for a couple of months. Obviously, the off season, if you don't make second major and don't make worlds, is very, very long. 6 months. 6 months off season is not sustainable. So for orgs, it's obviously not great, but for players, it's not great either. Going months and months and months without having any sustainable income. We're kind of just waiting to see if we actually hear anything officially before we decide what we're definitely doing or not doing. But what we, with what we do know from the conversations that we've had sort of informally, it probably doesn't look like Resolve are going to come back into Rocket League in 2025. I don't see a way in which we can do it without just chucking money at down the drain. So that's probably where we're at right now.
Yeah, I think just one point I want to add on here is like when you have a 6-month break, the problem is like less like, it's one, it's bad for viewership, just the way esports people are trained and everybody has ADHD. So it's like attention spans need to be like hit. The other is imagine like I go to my sponsor, right? And Mobile One Racing, I love them. Even though I'm one of the worst drivers in the world.
We love him too.
We
We
love
love
him.
him.
We do love
baby.
But like, imagine going to them being like, "Hey, so when's the season start?" I'm like, I don't know. It's gonna be a pretty long break. It's like, so what are you gonna do while we're spending money into your team? And it's like, oh, yeah, we're gonna wait until we hear back, and then it's like, oh wait, so there's more restrictions to like off on in terms of exposure. There's less lands, and players don't want to wear the decal historically, so it's like, why should we spend money into this? And it's hard for me as somebody that wants a win-win situation. So I think the 6-month thing is actually one of the major gripes, and I'm glad you brought it up.
And how's that compare? I guess you've got a few other esports, obviously leagues, massive. Is it, I guess, a full calendar in most other esports you're involved in? And obviously that's easier for sponsors to work with.
Yeah, I mean, like League is a great example. We just finished our off season. Season ends at November 2nd. It unfortunately ended a little earlier for us, but off season starts like basically the day after, right? And then all the announcements start happening, literally, a couple days ago and yesterday. And so then you have a new cycle of interest, and brands want to participate. Fans want to get excited. They want to start talking about the next season. Are these rosters going to work? Who sucks? Who's good? Versus like in Rocket League, I ask my staff almost like every week, do you know when the next Rocket League match is? And they're like, I don't know. That's rough. You know what I mean? Thank God for this FIFA E thing. And thank you to the team, RMC, for stepping up and jumping in there. I appreciate that.
So I guess you can't really talk too much about it, but was that a large part about picking up the team, being like, hey, if it's still Mobile 1, like we actually do have a LAN coming up, like we can actually represent. Oh, can you even represent Gen.G with these things? Obviously they're representing USA. I guess they can't wear any jerseys or anything.
So actually it was a pleasant surprise. We were already working on getting all the contracts and just kind of getting to know the players, and the coaching staff was like, it was so refreshing to like, just like a couple of days ago, Reddles jumps into our Discord and just says hi to our fans. Like, dude, that's pretty big. Like, I know that shouldn't be big, but like compared to where we came from, like it was, and I think that shouldn't be big, but the fact that they were doing that, the fact that they're reaching out to me directly to just kind of reassure that they're serious about like handling this the right way. We were going to sign them, and we were already in process. And then this thing hit, and we were like, oh, nice bonus. And so we were really excited about that.
Did he get a signing bonus for that?
For
going in Discord saying, hey, double the salary.
I'll get him some free Korean barbecue for every Discord interaction.
That's a good deal. That's a really good deal. That's more valuable than money, to be honest, Rails. You should like that deal. Take it.
It was pretty good when we were over there. We did get some good recommendations from Arnold as well for Korean barbecues, but that's another story. Anyway, it is funny though that's kind of, I don't want to say where the bar is, but just if for Rocket League players, I feel like media, content, stuff like that can be a whole nother discussion in terms of how they can make themselves more valuable. But I guess, Brendan, as well, from an OCE perspective, I guess what's your situation of Chiefs? I know last season was a bit of a schmozzle, if I could say, a bit of a shit show for OCE. We didn't have a broadcast for the first split with the changeover from Blast. There was a thing there where I don't know if they realised that we needed to have broadcasts outside of NA and EU. And yeah, anyway, just what's your current situation with Chiefs?
Yeah, I mean, OS is in a funny place. It's been a funny place for a couple of years. Obviously, I'll use EWC as the addition of EWC for our region.
Oh, and you cutting
out your mic keeps cutting out a little bit. In and out.
Is that a bit better?
Oh yeah, lower the gate a bit. Yeah.
Sorry, I'll up the gain. There you go.
Yeah, start again.
Yeah, so I was in a weird spot. It's been a weird spot for a couple of years. I mean, I'll use EWC as an example. EWC is great. The addition to it for our region is great. The thing with OS getting a direct slot to EWC now is that other, say, bubble North American or international teams, especially partnered EWC teams, their goal is to field as many teams as possible in EWC, right? An easier way to do that is to basically come to Australia or any minor region, buy out the top roster, way easier than battling through NA or EU, right? So we're seeing a lot of, I guess, North American orgs come to OS, and overnight our player salaries blew out by 5 times. That in turn makes it pretty unsustainable for, I would say, most Oceanic orgs outside of 1 or 2 I could think of to even like field a top 3-4 team now. It's sort of a funny talk because obviously as an org owner, I want the best for players, right? I want them to be on full-time salaries. A lot of Oceanic players don't play full-time. It's just like the nature of our scene, unfortunately. There's just not enough money to go around. But it does take away opportunities from OS orgs then. So long-term, will we just see OS turn into a bunch of NA orgs and no Oceanic organization representation anymore? That seems to be the direction it's heading, unfortunately. I'm battling pretty hard against it. Obviously, we're very lucky that we've got a few good partners that like believe in our vision and sort of get behind us as well. But realistically, the only reason that we're still in Rocket League is because it's my favorite esport. So like I battle against my boss all the time. He says like, we need to reinvest in other places, and I say like, yeah, but how good is Rocket League? It's like that pure sport. It's meant to bridge that gap between traditional sports, right? Like, and we're really involved in school-based esports. And one of our partners, Westfield, we do a lot of shopping center activation. So Rocket League should be an easy win for us. But it's actually increasingly hard in OS. We're getting a lot of our opportunities taken away because it's easier just for, I guess, other big international orgs to come in and take our top rosters, and there's not much we can do about it. I mean, and on top of that, I mean, this year we've had zero communication from Epic or Psyonix. Like you spoke, CJ, they took our broadcast away. I think they just like forgot we existed for a while. Other teams, like I'm seeing on Twitter all the time, other teams are leaving because they're like, oh yeah, we know this stuff, can't talk about it because we're under NDA. It's not looking good. I don't know anything, like I'm just sitting on my hands being like, oh, okay. I wish I was under NDA, like we just have no interaction with Psyonix and Epic at all. Like it's at the point where I'm DMing people on Twitter and LinkedIn from like the head of, competitive operations for Psyonix being like, hey, can you give me a Oceanic rep that I can talk to? And obviously I just get screened. I don't even get a reply. So it's a really interesting spot. Like, I mean, we're comparatively to like other esports that we're in, like even in the off season I'll use Rainbow Six Siege as an example. I speak to the Ubisoft esports reps weekly, and then not even just about the off season, just about their roadmap. Like they've just redone all their skin share plans for next year and like a big overhaul. Unfortunately, we didn't make it, which sucks, but they were very transparent with us and they gave us a lot of feedback, and they said, well, here's our roadmap and here's how OS fits into it. And like, for me, that gives me a lot of faith in the future for like R6 esports. I just currently like don't have any faith in OS Rocket League, and yeah, we're just here because I like Rocket League. Do we stay for 25? Like I really want to, but yeah, I just don't know what it looks like at the moment.
I mean, that kind of seems like a lot of orgs with their investment into Rocket League is just, I really like the game itself. Like I believe in, the esport, as you said, as a crossover to regular sports. And even, as you said, selling it to partners, it's like, it's kind of just on the belief that it should, be doing well. It should be on the way up.
We didn't even have a broadcast. How do I sell stuff to partners that doesn't exist? Like our brands want Oceanic fans and Oceanic guys. How can we build our community or our fan base when, there's nothing? So
you much rather basically from when you're comparing, so you're in Rainbow Six, are there other esports as well?
Yeah. So we're in League of Legends as well. We just got accepted into the new APAC league for League of Legends, which is really exciting. So we're moving out.
Wait, just quickly, APAC and League of Legends does include OCE as well, is it combined?
It does, yeah. There's a big rework where they've taken basically the top 8 teams from across APAC, and we're moving all our operations to Taiwan. All the teams are moving to Taiwan. So, and again, Riot have been hand-holding us the whole way through, super helpful, transparent. And this is a really exciting time for us in other esports, where like comparatively sitting here in Rocket League, a really bad time. So it's really easy for my boss to tell me, like, why are we so excited about these other esports? And then every time I speak to you about Rocket League, it's doom and gloom. Like, why are we even bothering? But yeah, it's hard when I just don't really have anything positive to say, apart from.
Well, the thing that stands out for me is that you got told no on with the skins in Rainbow Six, and that's a good thing. And it is a good thing to hear no, because sometimes I feel like the communication breaks down because there's a fear of saying no, or there's a fear of revealing the bad news. So they just go for no news instead in a lot of cases. But I actually much rather hear no in that kind of situation, because then you can make a decision. You actually know what the next step is, right? Instead of just being left up in the air. So do you think that would be like a much, or would you rather hear the bad news basically if there is bad news?
Of course, like I have no idea whether Chiefs get skin share next year. Obviously, we came back at the start of this year after a bit of a break, so we don't actually have skin share in the game at the moment. And our plan was to field a top 2 roster, because previously that's what's got people skin share in the game, right? Do I know if we get skin share or not because we didn't make Worlds? I have no idea. We did make lands, but again, is that enough? Who knows? Probably not. But I'd just rather some form of communication saying like, hey, this is what our skin share program looks like. This is what quantifies a team to actually be eligible for skin share. Yeah, just any chat from Epic or Psyonix.
When you say in Rainbow Six and stuff, you're talking to the direct to Ubisoft and stuff like that. Is there in other esports? I guess you can all probably answer this. Is there like some sort of actual communication with all orgs in general and the publisher developer, like some sort of actual pathways, or it all kind of like DMs and stuff? Like, is there a way for? Do you think there's a way for Epic or Psyonix to have, which I'm assuming there's not right now, an actual setup, whether it's a Discord or something like that, a direct one-to-one, between orgs and the Epic representatives?
Yeah, we chat directly with our esports local reps, which is good because we can build rapport with them. Obviously, OS is a very small, tight-knit community, so we are very close with all the other Oceanic orgs as well, so we talk regularly anyway. But yeah, we just talk one-on-one, realistically, with all the reps for other esports.
Have you guys, I guess, been in direct contact, anyone else with, I guess, Epic on this, Jeff or Arnold, on what's the communication lines at the moment for Rocket League?
Yeah, actually, the people working directly on this stuff have actually been really helpful. In terms of really responsive, but also kind of being realistic about where things are. The rumors are, and it's not about what's going to happen next year, but more about why these things are happening, and why we're following in kind of Epic's Fortnite's failed footsteps. Are that just generally it happens at the top at Tim Sweeney's level, where his experience with his first Fortnite esports tournament was really negative. You had a lot of players that won prizes, and you had BS terrible teams not paying their players. And so ever since then, he said, I don't want teams in my ecosystem. And every step that they've made has been to, I would rather have 1 million people earn $1 than a billion 10 teams or 10,000 teams earn $1 rather than one team earn 10,000, right? So it's a very just a macro shift in kind of the philosophy. But I would argue that having this peak and having the top of the esport be more sustainable allows every single person playing for $1. You feel when I'm playing basketball, I felt like Kobe, even though I got cut from my high school team, right? You need that top in your mind. You're that top player when you do something cool. Even though when you watch a video of yourself, you look terrible, and you're clearly I'm not built for basketball. That's another topic, but I actually do think this comes from the top. It has nothing to do with Blast. It has nothing to do with the folks that even at Psyonix. I think they're actually trying to make a lot of changes for the better. But how do you change the mind of a CEO that doesn't want to change, right? And I think that's probably the biggest problem we have to solve. And hopefully these kinds of things allow more people to, get their voices heard in some way or another. It's not like I'm gonna DM Tim Sweeney being like, "Hey, bro, let's talk Rocket League esports." He's got a lot of other things on his mind, right? But I think I would love if the way Fortnite and Epic have created such amazing, innovative, activations across the board, if they applied that innovation and did something new within esports, I'm ready to invest, right? It's just right now, it's just, a lot of good folks working really hard and not getting a lot of progress within the system, I think.
Ferra, I could see you leaning forward in your chair there. You've been more quiet than most of the times we've had you on the show, which is understandable. We've got a lot of voices in the call here, and you don't want to take the mic, because once we give Ferra the mic, that's it. He's not giving it back.
End of the show.
That's
No,
it.
but
We're gonna give you the
was-
mic. We're gonna give you the mic. It's all right.
Okay,
But
okay.
what are your thoughts on all this? Because you said at the start that you're not sure why you're here, but we all know why you're here. Is because you're a very connected guy in the French scene, but in the Rocket League scene, and you've been in the scene for a long time, so you know all the changes and you know what those changes mean to KC and the French scene and just Rocket League in general. So what's your thoughts on everything you're hearing here? I know a lot of it's information you already know, but do you have anything else you want to add here at this point to let us in on what's happening with KC and yourself especially?
I mean, I like the point that Arnold is making with the fact that Epic, I think, is trying to shy away from having, big names and big orgs and big stars and just like having 10,000 people earning dollars. I feel like that's the right way to put it, and which is to me a shame, because we need stars. Like when you start playing the game as youngsters, which I guess is the type of community they want to attract. They want to be like, I don't know, some of the best players in the world, but if we do not know them, if we don't have our own faker, if we do not have our own big team, like the stuff that make those kid dreams, why are they gonna even play the game in the first place? Why are they gonna start grinding lots of hours if it's just to end up having 1,000 share of very very split up cash prize, because they just want to split the cash prize as much as possible to, I don't know, pay as much as they can. I don't know, like some of these changes make sense in a way, but I feel like, as Arnold said, it's mostly a philosophical difference in the way we see things. I think all of us around here, see esports as a great way to, I don't know, attract people, tell storylines, and sell the game well. And I feel like Epic is not seeing it this way. Otherwise, we would not be having these conversations. And otherwise, I mean, you all touched on, lack of communication and stuff like that. I remember before the Epic layoffs. So last year, was it last year? Yeah, after 2023, we always had this big Discord with all of the pros. I think CJ and Rizzo, you know what I'm talking about. We always had this one big Discord where usually in the previous seasons, that's where all of the communication would go by. So you would pretty much perhaps Psyonix would handle all operations through this one Discord, and they were never really extremely communicative and responsive, but at least there was some kind of communication. And back in the days, Scheist, Stranger as well, were very open to answer questions. We've lost that. Like I think for the past year, we've had pretty much no communication. All of the players right now have been asking for like dates of the next regionals, and just so they can plan in advance, I don't know, some kind of week off or like vacation days for the next season, and we are not hearing anything. Like we don't have any clue at what's coming up next, at what's going on. And yeah, it's disheartening. The season is supposed to start in what, 5 weeks? They said 3rd of January, but what is starting on 3rd of January? Is it the qualifier of the regional? Is it the whole regional? When is the second one? Like I don't know. Like how do we plan those things? Because obviously, especially at KC, we do, and most of the French teams and most of the European teams do boot camps and stuff. But that requires planning and lots of stuff. And without communication, we can't have that. And I don't know. Like right now, it does feel like we are being left out, or like not left out, but like put on the same place as any player that just booted up the game and that want to share as much information as they do with any player ever. But I don't know. It does feel like we kind of need more information, more communication if we want to, I mean, make it work for everyone. You know, as much as best as it can be for like Epic and us. You know.
Yeah, it's a bit harder. Well, not harder now, but obviously Epic have offloaded the esports side of things to Blast from a running from a TO production standpoint. So now it's kind of I guess the developer Epic have removed themselves from in terms of running the esports. So I guess that kind of stuff is probably more of a Blast thing, like schedule, that kind of stuff. But as you said, we used to have a Discord. That was when obviously Psyonix, Epic were also running the esport itself. So you had that direct communication, but now it's kind of like a triangle between the players, orgs, with Epic on one side and Blast as well, which makes it tough. But Ferra, I guess like from a French perspective, you guys have a pretty big pull, I'd say, in terms of the esport itself. I mean, I don't want to say that. Well, I think we can say that the French are pretty much carrying the esport for viewership side of things, and just the even live at lands with your orgs representing with the Blue Wall, with Vitality, with Gentlemates. What do you see, I guess, from that perspective, from the French orgs? If I guess Rocket League, if the esport keeps going down this sort of path.
I'm not sure. I think we are lucky. Whether it's Carmel from KC or Squeezy from Gentlemates, both of them are like really in love with the game. So I mean, pretty much for the same reasons as you guys. They stay, but for no reasonable reason. It does seem they just like the game. They want to broadcast it because they like it, and it helps. I think that's their audience and their influence helps the game in my eyes. That's why right now, I mean, because Gentlemates, because Karmine Corp are in Rocket League. I think Rocket League right now is probably I don't have any info on that, but like it does feel like it's the second most popular game in France, behind League of Legends. But like in terms of viewers, in terms of even attention, you even like talking to people, just gaming in general, people like watching LCS and stuff in France because of all of those popular orgs are like bringing up pretty much the hype and the storylines around it. But are they gonna be staying much longer if if there is no reason to do so at some point? Like if everyone's leaving and there is no story to be told, what's gonna be left? I don't know. I have no clue, to be honest. It's like I hope everyone is gonna be. I hope we're like heading towards a better direction. But I really wonder, in what place the Rocket League scene would be if those French orgs would not be here, and if Esports World Cup was not featuring Rocket League. I think no orgs would have any interest into actually being in the game. That's how it feels actually.
It's tough because I guess if you look from from an Epic perspective, the argument of we need superstars, Jeff, is they can say, well, you don't need a team behind a superstar. You still, if we don't have any orgs, we're still going to have our Zens, we're still going to have our Daniels. Why do you think, from an org perspective, why do you think orgs are so crucial to the ecosystem?
Yeah, I think orgs make better storylines, right? You don't have rivalries. I guess you have rivalries between players, but they're not. We've talked about already. Players don't use content. They don't do content. They don't use socials, etc. So how they're making those storylines and rivalries it's not happening really, is it? We're not getting that beef other than occasional tweet. You played shit this regional or whatever, like, do you know what I mean? We're not really creating those storylines through players the same. I think teams and teams can do a better job of this for sure, like teams working together. We did a little bit with Endpoint this season just gone where we sort of manufactured some beef which accidentally became real. So I think there's I think there's better storylines with teams like, the best of the French, or, two English teams going off against each other, or whatever it might be. I think there's more storylines when orgs are involved, because they can highlight the stories better. They have a bigger audience generally, and they use socials and content better than the players do currently. So I think they help highlight those things and bring viewers to it. I mean, look at Karmine, right? Like, Karmine's a prime example. The audience that Kometo brings with his watch parties and things like that is just insane numbers that they bring to the esport. And without them, do you still get the same viewership? But probably not. I mean, we've seen peak viewership go down slightly this year, which I think is as a result of certain orgs not being involved in certain majors and things like that. So I think it has a huge effect on viewership and on storylines, rivalries, all that sort of stuff. And we lose a lot of that if orgs are not there to promote it.
I have a question that goes off that one a little bit. Like, when a player signs a contract, how much of a player's role is of them to actually create content and be a part of that, and manage the socials and all that sort of stuff? Like, how big is that to an org, and how much would they like that over a player who doesn't, basically?
I'd love that over a player that doesn't. 100%. I think it varies from player to player. When we're discussing contracts, like, some players just straight up from the bat, straight off the bat are kind of like, I don't really want to do content. I don't want to do, X, Y, and Z. I don't want to wear the decal, like Arnold said before. So, all these things get taken into account. We had a rule this past season where 2 out of the 3 had to use the decal on the team, which kind of worked. But we also we had streaming bonuses, we had content bonuses, like, tied into their contracts. So, like, part of their salary was only payable each month if they did, streamed X number of times, or they created X number of YouTube videos or TikToks or whatever it might be. I think it varies from player to player. Some players really want to lean into short form content. Some players really want to lean into streaming. And I think it's about working with players to help them, with the areas that they're passionate about. We're not trying to force players to do stuff that they don't really want to do. We just want players to realize that, that there's at some point you can't play Rocket League anymore, right? You're not going to get paid to play Rocket League. My old ass couldn't play Rocket League. I'm awful at the game. So, at some point they're going to have to move on to something else. And if they've given themselves sort of a foundation to build on with content or streaming or whatever it might be, it just gives them another option. They might just never want to touch Rocket League or be involved in it again, and that's fine. But I think having that as a fallback is really important as well.
Did I catch that right? Did you say that there's a 2/3 decal rule with the team last season? So they have to agree amongst themselves who gets to not be placeboed with the decal. Is that what happened?
So, so a placebo, I fucking hate that word for starters. It's just stupid. I hate it. I hate it.
He can back his modded anyway. Like, there's no excuse.
Yeah, exactly.
But some players are placeboed by the presence of back his mod, though.
It's actually true.
Don't get me started on that, Johnny, as well.
I think it's dumb as well, but players will say that.
Yeah. I think we tried in the. I'm going to get onto another different rant here, but we tried in the off season to design our decal so that the players thought it felt good in game. So with our first roster, before we made changes, we designed it with them, and then obviously the design that ended up in game was nothing like what we designed, so that didn't really help.
That's heavy. That's unlucky.
It was heavy.
Heavy
decal. Yeah. So I think because the designs just didn't translate well, what we actually produced was not what ended up in game. So I don't think that helped, but the 2 out of 3 rule is something that we had, and to be honest, what ended up happening was Ivan and Raziz used it and Cash didn't, because Cash switched cars all the time to stuff that just didn't have the decal as an option. So it just ended up being just being Raziz and Ivan.
Do you think Cash was avoiding using the cars where decal was there as an excuse?
I'm sure partly, yeah, for sure. He did use it sometimes. He did use it sometimes, but like, Cash is one of those players that, if he doesn't feel good, he wants to switch the car and things like that, which is all going back to that placebo conversation. But yeah, because he's he uses the Mustang and things like that, which just we don't have the decal on. So,
but
yeah.
I mean, is the the content stuff, the decal, is this kind of just the tip of the iceberg? I mean, Arnold, you've had a team, you've had players, one player that does a lot of content, one player that doesn't even tweet. I mean, but is that like, as I said, is it the tip of the iceberg, or is it more, as you said, you want to see the direction of the Rocket League itself rather than trying to, make the most money out of your players or team?
Yeah, so we try to be super upfront about what we're doing. We have probably the weirdest policy this season. I think I'll reveal it, but in terms of decals, but basically, it does matter. If the esport was throwing off so many more views on its own, probably matters less. Do you know what I mean? Like if we're playing every month and we're getting exposure every month, viewership is growing, new stuff is dropping every week or something, like then I'll be like, whatever, don't use the decals, don't tweet, whatever, I don't care. But in an environment where we don't know when we're playing next, and I've just been shocked because there'll be like a content day, and some people just miss it, and or like a fan event, and some people just don't show up, and like those kinds of things, I think, really make it difficult when the esport isn't going well for me to go to the sponsor and being like, oh yeah, like and it's really obvious when you like force somebody to tweet something, and and like getting people to be active randomly doesn't work. So I'm not trying to force somebody to be something that they're not, and I have no issues with each person kind of deciding that, hey, I'm a content guy versus I'm not a content guy. That's totally fine. The rule that we imposed this year is a little bit more straightforward. So we calculated that the value of wearing a decal in a month is like maybe $500. And so players basically get to decide like, hey, if I wear the decal the entire month, I get the full salary, but $500 of my salary for that month is actually contingent on me wearing the decal. So if they don't wear it, I'd be like, no problem. I'm gonna go take that 500 and then spend that on content creators and content creation, right? And like, no worries. Placebo is worth more than to you, but you're an adult. You decide, and let me know. We'll spend it somewhere else if you really decide that that's not what is important for you. And so that's kind of the way that we run it. I think we'll see how it goes. But that's kind of where our business is, right? Like our sponsor is like saying, give me impressions. I'm not getting enough from esports. And every time we wear the decal, we get some impressions. If we don't wear it, we get less, or the quality of the impression is less. So let me go and like supplement that by putting that into content. So that's just kind of our approach on this stuff. And like, is this the right answer? Probably not. It's probably like a really sloppy, like messy way to fix this. But I figure we got to try something, because just sitting there while people don't show up, don't wear decals, and we're just sitting around, like that's not the answer.
I like it. It's something we talk about a lot on the show. Is why players aren't wearing decals. It's a big topic on the show quite regularly. Quick question before I have another question for the room. Is that just for RLCS events that they have to wear the decal, or are we going to be policing the streams?
No, not the
Trying to
streams.
spot
The
them?
one thing,
Whoa, he's not using the decal. Get back in the
no,
decal,
not the
young man.
streams, not the streams. But I do
Not the
have a
streams.
policy of not wearing another team's decals. I think that's so disrespectful to the org and to our sponsor, right? Because they're trusting in us to handle their business in a very difficult time, right? Especially a sponsor like Mobile One Racing, like they're supporting the entire scene. They're supporting us, and I just think it's really disrespectful, and I take it personally.
Yeah, you wouldn't
So-
see that in a sport or like
Dude, if you're a
no-
Laker, like you don't wear
Yeah.
the Celtics gear when you're out, right? Like
Yeah, it'd be an outrage if that happens. So
Yeah.
it's not. Yeah, I'm with you the whole way. Just to circle back to an earlier topic and just open it to the room. I've forgotten who brought it up, but I wanted to know what's your guys' sales pitch basically. So there was a conversation going on about, okay, Epic don't seem like they like orgs. There were some shady orgs in Fortnite that Arnold mentioned that definitely did some players dirty. So they've just said, nah, we don't like orgs. What's the reason for orgs? Because I think a lot of the viewers watching right now are hardcore fans. They all love orgs in Rocket League. They want to see orgs in Rocket League. When they hear about an org leaving Rocket League, they're sad. But for most of the audience, they probably don't really know what the purpose of an org is, because they're just casual fans, which is fine. So what's the sales pitch basically to convince a casual fan, to convince somebody who doesn't really know the goings on between orgs and players and the tournament, the esport? What do orgs do? Why do we need orgs in Rocket League from all of you guys or various org representatives? Don't all speak at once.
I think it's pretty simple, man. This is fun, right? Like, it's fun to cheer for a team. It's fun to like have rivalries. It's fun to have these storylines. It's also nice when an org like handles all the ups and downs and issues of a player. The one thing that I would want to say is that, I do think orgs should do a better job on kind of setting the tone on how to get the best out of players across the board, right? Like, I was shocked that, one, the orgs don't make the teams here, right? In Rocket League, it's kind of like the players just decide. Two, the coaches are basically held hostage by the players, because like as soon as a player doesn't like them, they're gone, right? And like, that's not how you get the best out of just young men and women, to be more successful, to be a better team player, and to be a better player, like, and to be a better team, right? Like, that's a recipe for just like, it's just toxic solo queue, right? Like, that doesn't work. And so I think a lot of orgs were riding on easy money when we used to have it. I miss the good old days. And yeah, they didn't really police this stuff. And so now we're out here trying to clean it up. And we're very lucky now with our team, and just how much they like are approaching things professionally. But like, and we've been very lucky in general to have players that approach things really professionally. But like, that was the exception, and I was shocked to hear that was the exception. So, like, I got to work with Jack and love working with him, and every other like org I talked to was like, dude, you're so lucky. You have no idea how hard it is on their side. So, I just think a lot of orgs are very guilty too, because they just wanted to be involved, and they didn't do the work of being like, hey, you got to do your job.
Yeah, I think above all, I mean, not above all, but when it comes to Rocket League, there is something that I always remember, is that they market their game as to be, pretty much a sport. But in sports, you have like teams, you have like brands. When you talk about football, soccer, we think about, I don't know, Real Madrid, FC Barcelona, Manchester United, PSG, you can name all of them. Same for basketball. You have Cleveland Cavaliers. You have Lakers. I mean, you can go on every sport, and in every country in the world. You all have recognizable brand that you can get attached to, because players, they will move. They will retire. They will get injured in sports. That happens, but that does happen in esports as well. They will move to other teams and stuff. But like, for a fan, I think it's easier to get attached to a team, a brand. And I guess French teams have been doing a pretty good job with that. Whether it's KC, Mate, Vitality, we all have like very, very, very engaged fan base. To the point where, for example, I think it was like two weeks ago, KC was able to run the whole KCX event, where 30,000 fans showed up and got to enjoy a show. But that's only possible because those guys are more attached to the club than they are to the players, and that's what makes the sport. That's what makes sports pretty much. Like I mean, sure, you have the Lionel Messi's and the Cristiano Ronaldos, but and in sports, it's pretty important to always have the club first, and the institution, and as you said, Arnold, the coaches and the coaching staff, and everyone is more important than the players. But that's because it's a sport, and the sport is a team-based game, so you put more, I don't know, emphasis on the team and the structure on the team. we need to do that in Rocket League, and I mean that's what orgs are meant to be. At the end of the day, it's just like esports club, pretty much. But for some reason, I guess Epic doesn't see it that way. I guess they don't want orgs, so they don't want clubs. They just want to have Hogan mod against Gibbs, Ribandrat, whatever. You know, I feel like we need to have rivalries, and for that, you know, clubs and esports club, you know, help create. I mean, actually make the whole of it. Do you think Zen would be as recognizable as he is without the Karmine versus Vitality rivalry that we had last year? Same for Vatira, same for you know, many of the top players in Europe. They all have you know, really high stock in terms of like brand, but that's mostly because of their, you know, their org have been carrying the branding for them, the rivalry for them, pretty much. So
Yeah, I
we
still
do need
remember
them.
when I first saw Zen, and I was just still getting into like esports as a whole or Rocket League as a whole. And I was just like, yo, this dude is not playing the same Rocket League as anybody else. Like, I remember just sitting there being like, you can do this shit in this game? Like, it was incredible, right? And like the energy of like seeing it in like a team setting and seeing that happen live was like, holy shit, this thing is special, right? I was watching a player, and kudos to the devs for making a game this deep and this skill based, where like the game I'm playing is clearly a different game than the game Zen is playing, right? And and I think you lose that hype, you lose the meaning. It's just a random, you know, freestyler like N1 mixtape. I don't know if people. I'm probably dating myself by saying that, but like instead of wow, he's doing these incredible things in a team setting, right? And I always wonder like what would happen if you had more systems that challenged players, because like I secretly like look at all the scrims. I look at like how many scrims people are doing, how many like solo queue games people are playing, and like that actually factors a lot into who we choose, because like I was shocked at like just kind of the scene. We were very lucky in having a lot of very hardworking players, but just the whole scene, I was shocked by how many players there were across different teams that like didn't even seem to really enjoy the game or didn't even seem to play.
I mean, especially if you look in NA, not
North America got its problems, man.
Yep. 20 hours past
Yep.
2 weeks is pretty common.
Don't have to get into a tangent about that one. Pretty sure that one's well known.
I think to add like more broadly holistically as well, like benefit that orgs offer is player development as well, right? Like obviously Epic's just dropped the competitive age to 13. A lot of these young gamers, they're firstly not built to handle the stresses of like the world stage, right? So it's like sort of the duty of an org to provide like proper care. We employ like sports psychs, mental health coaches and stuff like that. We do a very like top-down approach to make sure like our player development is quite important, because especially in like their formative years, there's a lot of kids that are just like playing this game because they enjoy playing games, right? They don't want to go Rocket League full time. They just happen to be really good at the game. And then it turns into a job, right? And then it's like, okay, now what happens when my hobby is turned into a job? It's like overgaming is like a big thing. We see a lot of burnout in young gamers as well, right? So without any org structure, well, these kids are not going to develop any of these healthy habits to learn how to like have a sustainable career in esports long term, right? They're going to be playing 80, 90 hours a week, which is like super unsustainable. They're not going to know what dopamine exhaustion is. And they're not going to know why 6 months down the track, they're stopping enjoying not just their favorite game, Rocket League, like their whole life experience is like down across the board, right? Because they're like, have no dopamine left. So I think orgs add a lot of value to the scene. Good orgs, should I say? Like a lot of orgs don't do this, sadly, but an org worth their weight is going to prioritize like player health and player development at the forefront of everything, right? And I think that's something like Epic is maybe not considering or forgetting about, is, you know, they look at it just from like a player versus org like divide, where it's like there's actually a lot of benefits outside just like team branding and, you know, community that orgs actually bring to the lives of these players, and, you know, to help them succeed.
Yeah, but how much do they believe in that when they're able to actually decrease the minimum age to 13 when, you know,
Exactly. No,
we should we should realistically, put it higher. But
yeah, I mean, trust me, like any 13-year-old is not going to listen to a single thing I say about like performance coaching, right? But it's actually even harder to work backwards when they're already 20, right? And they're already like, oh, I'm the best in the region and I've played 80, 90 hours a week. Why do I have to listen to what you've got to say? I'd rather get in when they're 13, 15 and like help them develop these healthy habits. So even if they do retire at 20, they've got habits about how to balance life sustainably when they go to uni or when they get a job and stuff like that. Like we can teach these kids how to be a good functioning member of society after their esports careers are done, rather than just degenerates like the rest of us. Yeah,
which is tough for esports. I mean,
yeah.
Well, if we look at that from an Epic Games perspective, right? Then, because we've kind of, I feel like we all, I guess all of us here, as Johnny said, the hardcore fans, we know just how important the orgs are. From an Epic perspective, I want to say if I'm Tim Sweeney, because that sounds weird, but like in terms of pitching this to Epic, because if they're just concerned about, say, oh, we just need people playing the game, or I know that, so Johnny's running Salt Mine, he's been pretty vocal about getting as many signups as possible. We just need, the most people signing up to tournaments. We just need the most people playing the game. What is the pitch from an org perspective to Epic? Like what value, I guess, where's the middle ground that we can meet at here that's going to be able to, have orgs buy back in, believe in the future of Rocket League, but also Epic Games are, I guess, feel like they're getting something out of it as well. Because I think it's easy to say, I know we know how important investing in, making sure that 13-year-old kids don't go down the wrong path and stuff. But if you're looking at purely money, figures, stuff like that, in terms of a business standpoint, they're probably going, well, they're still playing the game. We're getting signups. We're getting people buying our items. So what is it for an org, perspective to Epic Games?
I think, so I've talked to a few devs that are still, let's say, in League of Legends now, or, have used to be on the team. And, esports is not a new user acquisition funnel. It's probably one of the worst things to use for a new user acquisition funnel. It's actually a great retention tool. So what it does, it kind of retains your users, especially the more hardcore users. And then the more hardcore users obviously spend more money and all of these things. But I think that's hard to prove because it's a more indirect link. But I think the best way that we can prove, and to be honest, if I was Tim Sweeney and I looked at the Rocket League scene and what it used to be, I would say, this is stupid. We're spending so much time on the decals. None of these people are using it, and it's not generating any money for anybody, right? Why are we wasting time when we can make a BTS decal, and that's going to probably do way better, right? We probably can't compete with BTS no matter how big the esport is, but I think that's where we need to be, and that's why we're reorienting around like, hey, we can produce value within the game. We can produce people purchasing in the game, because unless we align our incentives around viewership and purchases in the game, we have no foot to stand on, and we are just waiting until they decide for the next cost cut, right? And then. So that's why I'm so firm and annoying, even with our stupid rules about like decals and all these things. It's less to do, and I feel bad for our RMC team because they have to deal with the brunt of like a bigger battle that we're fighting, which is recognizing that we need to be able to prove that we can produce people and fans that will purchase stuff in game because of the work we do, right? And I really respect our team for even signing up because I'm very superstitious. I play a lot of sports. Like I've always felt like, oh, that's off, or this is good, or this is off. But I think our goal is to make sure that we can produce that value. Otherwise, it's not going to work.
So you mentioned, sorry, I'm laughing because there was a chat prediction on if I would talk or not in the next 5 minutes. But, but you mentioned about like Riot, right? You mentioned Riot and how it's like a retention tool and all that stuff. But what are some things that other esports do that you think Rocket League would be able to copy? Is there anything that you can think of off the top of your head, or?
500 fake skin.
$500, yeah. We need a $500 Redel skin. That's what we need. So I think Valorant's probably the one that has moved the needle the furthest most recently. where basically every single team is judged based on how many gun decals they sell, right? So basically, that's the proxy for how big your fandom is how many people bought
How
your
many?
gun.
Really?
Yeah, that is the proxy, right? What else are you gonna do? Right? There's viewership, of course,
Yeah.
but the other one is like, how many people bought the skin, right? Luckily, our team is really strong. Our brand is strong, and also they did a great year, so we did very well there. But that's really the core, right? And I think even orgs should be judged based on how many decals do we sell. Put us on a leaderboard and announce the leaderboard every month, right? Like make it a competition, right? Like I think one thing that orgs are great at is competing. And right now, everything's in a black box. We have no idea how we're doing. Actually, I know how we're doing. Our decals sales sucked last year. So, like put us in competition, put us, and have us compete. And also we can be more transparent to our players, right? Like that's the thing is that like I'm not trying to like, make life hard on our players. I just want to be more transparent about the battle that we're fighting, how our business works, and just be upfront about why we're doing things, right? So, every 500 we get, we're putting that into content so we can drive more sales of our decal, right? And that's where I think we could do a lot better job.
I think just on that as well. Obviously this season, yeah, everybody's decals sales have been awful. I think that's been everybody. G2 have talked about it. Obviously, Arnold's talked about it. We've earned basically nothing from decals this season. But I think if you look back at the 22-23 season, like we were, I think like 12th in Europe that season, but we still did $100,000 in sales. So, if we as a top 12 team in Europe is doing $100,000 in sales, then surely, I have no idea what the other, what the top teams are doing, what Karmine were doing, Vitality, etc. But surely there's value in that, and I know that some of that responsibility falls to us to push it harder and promote it, and obviously with a rev share model there is incentive to do that because we earn money from pushing that right directly, but also I think there has to be some give on Epic's side, right? You can't go, oh, that decal you designed, we're not going to put half the stuff that you put on that decal design actually in the game. Oh, when anodized, that's gone. So I think there has to be some give and take, right? They took so much off us this season just gone. We lost away decals, we lost goal explosions, and we're still on this horrible 70-30 rev share model when Epic aren't even doing the basics, which is putting our design that we've spent time and money building into the game properly. So I think it's a 50-50. Yes, orgs definitely have to do better at promoting the decal, in-game item sales, and I'm more than happy to compete with other people. We're a much smaller org than Gen.G. We're never going to outsell you, Arnold. But I think it has to be give and take, right? There has to be more effort put in on Epic's side as well.
I think.
I mean,
go ahead. Sorry.
yeah, I was gonna say it's not even just that. It's when the Valorant skins came out, they were promoted all around the game. You launched the game and you had the main page was promoting it. In Rocket League, to buy the skin, you have to go through I don't know how many menus just to get to the esports tab, just to buy the skin, which are actually in another currency than the usual skin. So I feel like it's snake biting his own tail. Epic can complain all they want about this. I mean, they don't complain, but they could complain maybe about how much the orgs do not sell well their decal. But if it's hidden behind 3,000 layers of difficulties to actually buy it without them actually putting the effort to just help promote it and putting it on a front page. Oh, there is the World Championship happening. By the way, we have skins that you can buy on the shop. No, like I don't even think that there has been a mention of the World Championship on the game outside of the.
We have to be the only game without an esports tab at this point because we have like the live button, but that's it. Though we just have like, hey, we're live. Click on this. It's just a link to the Twitch.
Are the banners even updated? On Championship, I don't even think so. At this point, like the World Championship was what 3 months ago. Come on, we know the winners. You can put them on the. I don't know. It does feel like yes, orgs can all do better, but I mean, how difficult would it be for Epic to actually put some effort in the, making this a sport, pretty much making teams recognizable, making people want to buy the team skin, pretty much, which
think
is not the case.
you brought up a really good point that I kind of thought about. It's, there's no shot to him, Mr. Sweeney's watching this because he's, much busier than all of us combined and running an incredible company. But I would say the approach to esports decals is just completely wrong, right? I think so. If you look at the $500 Faker skin, but it's actually there's a couple of things that I think are really important. One, esports is not just great for kind of engaging and retaining your core fans and core player base. It's also great for retaining and engaging your dev team, right? The people that I've met behind the scenes in esports freaking love it. They love watching the thing that they work so hard to create come to be this amazing thing. They love watching Zen. They love watching Chovy. They love this stuff. So it gives meaning across the organization internally. The other part is that when you do an esports skin, you need to go premium. And probably this is where I lose any kind of goodwill with any fans watching. But basically, it's an excuse to charge more for your skin because you're saying, hey, look, a cut goes to the player and cut goes to the team. That's why it's our excuse to charge more. And also, these are the most engaged folks. So you're not going to sell a lot compared to like a normal decal, but you will sell at a high price to your core fan base, right? So one thing I noticed was even with the legendary skin that was launched in Riot, we had a lot of complaints on Twitter. A lot of people bought them.
Yeah.
A lot of people bought them.
And people who do buy it,
Publicity.
they're more likely to use it. If it's more expensive,
Yeah.
people are way more likely
Dude,
to
you
use
want
it
to
as
flex
well.
that Louis Vuitton, like
Exactly. They want to flex the expensive skin. So if esports decals cost more, people would want to use them.
It's
more.
the publicity
So
as well. Like everyone was saying, like $500 Faker skin. This made not mainstream news, but like all of esports was talking about this $500 skin. This is ridiculous. Whereas if it was $50, probably no one really talks about it. They're like, oh, it's a cool skin.
And it's an excuse for them to try very premium things,
Mm.
right? Is the answer each team has a decal? Maybe not. Maybe it's a tournament skin. Maybe it's something else, right? Like, I don't know, but the way we're approaching it now is going in the wrong direction, which is the bare minimum. Oh, it's there. If you're a fan, you'll do it, but it has no meaning behind it. And sports is all about like meaning and storylines, right? Like, it's the reason why we watch Jake Paul and a 60-year-old Mike Tyson fight. It's like the story and the meaning, not the actual boxing, like, itself, right? So I think there's just a fundamental misunderstanding. I don't think it's at the working level. I would say it's at the executive level. And I hope that these kinds of podcasts and these kinds of things help reach or give folks an excuse to clip and send those out because I think it's really important. We're just not
That's a
going in
very
the right direction
clippable
right now.
thing. I'm sure what you said there is extremely clippable, very strategically clippable to get some kind of narrative going. But yeah, I think you're onto something here. Yeah, let's bring Brendy back in. I know Brendy disconnected earlier, by the way, in case anybody was wondering. He got back in a while ago, but that's where he went. Internet's struggling over there a little bit. But
Classic.
that must be music to your ears. I wanted to kind of ask, especially Brendy and Jeff, about this because we're talking to more about Gen.G, KC, massive orgs, and then there's smaller orgs. Does hearing like tournament skin like make you excited? Because you're thinking, okay, now suddenly we're all working together. Everybody's promoting the same skin, and they're all getting a slice of that. If you're competing in the tournament, what are your guys' thoughts on that in particular?
Yeah, I mean, to go back to Rainbow Six Siege again, like they've just announced their new skin share program, right? 20 teams get skin share, but they've also announced like an affiliate program. So for for teams that don't get access to the skin share, you could still actually get, I guess, a tier 2 revenue stream to help subsidize your teams a bit. So it's just a percentage of like the global sales of all the pro team skins combined and all the sales that Ubisoft are doing as well. It goes into a pool and you might get a little bit of a cut of it. Now, it's not going to be anywhere near where skin share revenue might be, but still like it's Ubisoft saying like, okay, we can see that esports is in a bit of a weird space and it's becoming unsustainable. Like, here's our effort to help sustain even the smaller teams slightly. And this affiliate program might go actually a long way for the smaller teams, you know? So I think something like that, some sort of tier 2 revenue stream is always great. Like, yeah, tournament skins as well, like any sort of event skin that goes into a pool and is divvied out to everyone. It's a great way to help give back to some of the teams that are competing if they aren't part of this tier 1 revenue stream. Like, and even to touch back on what Arnold was saying before, I think Epic can complain all they want about skin sales being low for orgs, but they're the ones that are not fostering creativity when it comes to these esports decals. Like, there's another OS org, Ground Zero, shout out Ground Zero. Their skin this year was meant to be like this super awesome, rusted out Fennec. It's like a barn find. And basically at the last minute, Epic got back to them and said like, nah, it's a bit much. It's a bit too busy. And you'll be able to find the concept on Twitter. Like, they post it all the time. But it's an awesome skin. It's awesome. And then, you know, their one this year was just basically stock standard because they had to reinvent it last minute. Now, I think orgs themselves have their own personality and their own brand. I think like we need to lean into that more so than just giving everyone like basically team colors, which is so boring. Like, why would I buy that? I would just equip it on backers mod, to be honest. Like, I'm not going to put in even $5 to just get a skin that's blue for Chiefs, right? Like, I need some sort of attachment to it or storyline behind it, you know?
But then how I'm gonna touch on one thing is like how where's the line, because you know there is gonna be since right now the format is completely open. Where's the line between an org that can actually have a skin and an org that actually can't have a skin? And obviously with the current format, we can't suddenly have everyone have a skin. I mean, that's probably what Epic are gonna think, because obviously it's too much work. So where's the line, you think?
I mean, that's a great question. Obviously, it seems at the moment that the line they've drawn is like teams that go to Worlds basically get a skin. Do I want that to be expanded to maybe like teams that qualify for lands? Because there are a lot of EU and NA teams that obviously don't make it to Worlds, right? There's a lot of really like hyper competitive teams worldwide that also have really big fan base that might not make Worlds. I don't really have an answer about where we should draw the line. Maybe the line that they have at the moment is the correct one. Yeah, I guess that's open discussion for everyone.
I think just you know, obviously the we're kind of all talking about it, but yeah, the what's happening next season is so far the only teams that have been contacted about decals is Worlds teams. So let's go back to, you know, Karmine had a rough split too. Sorry, Ferra. What if they don't make Worlds? Are you just not giving Karmine a decal next season?
NRG.
Like, you know, you one of your biggest teams in the game. Yeah, NRG just picked up the best team in North America from last season, and are you just not going to give them a decal? Are they not getting one? So I think there has to be some play there to help decide for sure. And I think also teams that have been around for, you know, have been supporting the ecosystem for X number of time, that should be rewarded as well. You know, I think what I want to touch on as well is I think a lot of people assume that when we're asking Epic for things, we're as organizations we're almost asking. It's almost seen that we're asking Epic to fix esports, you know, as if we're like, we can't sort our own business model out. Epic, you need to help us, and that's not the case at all. I think a lot of us understand and appreciate that the esports model needs to adapt and evolve, and we need to, you know, come up with new ways that we generate revenue, you know, outside of just Epic handouts or, you know, prize money or whatever, which has never really been any money anyway. And I think that's maybe the misconception is we're not saying to Epic, yo, you need to help us because our businesses are failing. What we're saying is we want to support your ecosystem, we want to be involved, but you need to work with us really here, because there are other things that other esports are doing really, really well to help esports teams be in their ecosystems. And if you don't help us, like if you aren't giving us something, then we're just not going to continue to invest in esports. And maybe that's what they want. Maybe they've had bad experiences with teams, but if all the teams disappear tomorrow, the level of the esport drops dramatically. I personally think, because these players are not going to be able to dedicate the same amount of time to the esport. So
well, you're already kind of seeing that as well, because
Yeah, I mean,
all the orgs are dropping out, and you've seen a lot of retirements as well, especially in NA.
yeah, and it's
NA
not gonna
Exodus.
stop. Like it's because there is less events, because there is less everything. It's harder actually to actually make lands. It's more exhausting as well, because the season, despite being really short, is really intense, because you have to go through all of the open qualifiers, all of the, one mistake and you're out, as you pointed out. That's what happened to us. So everything is more expensive and more exhausting and less rewarding, because you actually attend to less events. 4 or 5 years ago, surely the budgets were lesser than what they are today. Yes, yet we had, we had actually, lower cash price, lower everything, but yet we are still able to have, 2 worlds per season, E-League, DreamHack, other like third-party events. Well, there now. I'm sure there's a way to make them happen, but
Yeah, what do you
happening.
guys see then? I guess for the off season, Arnold, you mentioned it before, the struggle with talking to Mobile One about, hey, great season, now we have 6 months off. You could argue on one side of things, hey, we do have a full off season. Look, we've got Salt Mine, we've got Arm the Rebels Cups, we got weekly tournaments, we've got club dubs. But what from an organizational perspective, like is that enough? I guess we for 2 years now, I guess we've had it more of a community driven off season. Obviously, Epic's been really supportive with these community events. They've been providing the prize pools and stuff for that. But like from an org perspective, what does the current off season do for orgs, and what would you guys like to see?
So I think more community run events is a great thing. You also need a team that like wants to play at these events. And I think that's also really important. This Team USA thing is also incredible, and it's a great opportunity for us. So like I think across the board, we would like a more drawn out season, so that there's more action and activity going on instead of just a 6-month period. Having these community cups fill in those gaps, and having a smaller gap makes those community tournaments more special. So if you're looking at Valorant, you can see the Red Bull tournament that's happening, and like that's really exciting, where you get like a really big event that happens once a year at the end of the year in the off season, and that's like super exciting for a lot of folks, right? Versus if you just have a 6-month period, it's also making every community event less special, right? And I think that's where we would like to see just a longer season. I would also, if any pros are watching this, I would also say like when you get invited to stuff, like you should go. Like I think right now orgs are watching a lot of the stuff that used to be okay that they're just saying like it's not okay anymore, right? Like I talk to all the owners, and what I'm probably more like realistic to our players, but they say one thing to their players, and behind the scenes when I talk to them, they're like, dude, I'm cutting these guys as soon as so like they are like they've got their freaking flags up, as in like any excuse they're looking to like make a move, right? And you're seeing teams just completely drop out, so all the tea leaves are there. So like if you're a pro, you have a content day, please show up. Like if you're a pro, you got an event, like just show up, right?
So
Like
was that actually a thing? Like not showing up to that
This is
doesn't make sense.
unheard of for Ferra.
But I mean, we had like for this off season actually. I think for French team was pretty feel, because we had the flip and spin LAN, but also KC run its own events. So we have our own arena, so we run an event there. We had the KCX 2 weeks ago, but like I don't see a world where I do not show up to this event. Well, first of all, because I want to do them because they're exciting, but second of all, like my contract gets shut down the second I don't show up. Like it's like and as a fan, if I pay my ticket to attend one of these events and my team doesn't, like one of the players or like one of my team does not show up for unreasonable reasons, which is just being lazy, I don't know how you can excuse that or like accept that as an org, like for sure. Like it's yeah, I don't see how it's possible, how it can happen.
We've been very lucky where we haven't had that happen, but what I've been hearing has been that a lot of it's been happening, and so
That's crazy.
yeah, it is. I mean, even for stuff like I think EWC is a good example, right? Like for orgs, this was kind of their lifeline last year, or this past year, and a lot of teams that didn't want to go, right? And like it's just for me a lot like Rocket League is not my like number one moneymaker, right? I do it because just like a lot of the folks here, I freaking love it. I think the potential is incredible. The community is actually pretty freaking great, and it's like the weirdest, kindest, most meme community that I've ever seen. So it's like I kind of like the vibes versus like the league community can be kind of like rough sometimes. So like
We
and
know.
so
We'll get on the roof lately.
Yeah, we know. See, like we've been trying to tell people, people who've only been in Rocket League esports, they don't understand how toxic
They
it
think
is in
we're
other
toxic.
esports. They think Rocket League's toxic. They go and like get, what is saved by their ranked teammate. They're like, oh, why is this community so toxic? I'm like, brother, it's
yeah,
not that bad. Like you've got
it's
it
not
pretty
that
good to be
bad.
honest. It's really not that bad.
And I think just kind of finish my thought because I feel like I'm going on too long. Is it feels exhausting when people, whether it's players, whether it's staff, like don't want to do their job. This is your job, right? And when you're in a job, you got to show up to work. Like that's what you sign up for. If you don't want to do it, then don't do it. Just don't join an org and just kind of play with your friends. And that's a viable path too. Like don't force yourself to be in an org, right? Like I think it's just a choice, and I think a lot of people should be more clear that they're making a decision to join an org, actually read the contract, because yeah, if you're a pro, please read your contract. Orgs are going to start enforcing them. So probably the other owners are probably pissed I said that, but yeah, just kind of giving a heads up.
So with the off season, one of the things that is happening this off season is FIFAe. You guys are all involved in FIFAe in some way, for various different reasons. But with FIFAe, I think a lot of people were hoping it would be more of the event carrying the off season narrative, with like a little bit of a switch up from the regular no national restriction teams. Lots of, especially in Europe, multinational teams. Although it's not as much of a thing in some other regions. But it hasn't really ended up being that, and there's definitely been a lack of communication on that front. But one of the other things that has been missing, and I think would have made a lot of sense and would have driven a lot of the off-season story, would have been a path for anybody to actually qualify. So I know I think actually all 4 of the USA, France, England, Australia, there were qualifiers in some nations, but none of them for the nations you guys are involved in.
We got announced that we were having a qualifier, but no.
You did announce that you were?
Well, it was originally announced that Australia was going to.
Oh yeah, it was originally announced. You're right. Do you want to actually tell everybody what happened with that? Because that's like a bit of a unique situation. So do you want to fill us in what happened in Australia with FIFAe?
Yeah, I mean, I guess we would also love to know what happened on the back end. Like it feels to us that FIFAe just dropped the ball. Whether it's like our regional representative, who was like is meant to be the football association, right, or the TO themselves, basically just got to the day of our qualifier and was like, "Oh shit, we haven't planned anything." So they reached out to basically the manager of like the top host team and said like, "Hey, you're the guy now. You get to pick a team." And of course, like he's just going to pick his own team, right? Like I would do the same thing if they reached out to me. I would pick the Chiefs. But then obviously, like indirectly, they've turned dude into a scapegoat for the entire region, who's now angry that we don't have a qualifier, right? So everyone's angry at this guy for picking his own team when he didn't really have a say in the matter. And then we actually tried to reach out to FIFAe again. We had no communication, so we were trying to just find the right person to talk to. We were trying to find a point of contact for basically months leading up to the qualifier date. Nothing. We were going to put up a $10,000 prize pool ourselves. Shortcast was gonna run the was gonna run the event. Like it was actually it was going to be like full community driven. And the problem in OS as well is because it was announced that we were having a qualifier, there was a bunch of changes in the off season between the top 4 teams. None of the top 4 teams are the same as they were last split. So how do we know that we're actually sending the best regional representative? Like, we don't, because we didn't have a qualifier. So yeah, there's a lot of angry people on our end because people didn't get the opportunity to try and qualify. There's actually a lot of people making roster moves and like a lot of people like scrimming in the off season because they were like, great, the qualifiers coming up. And then basically to get rugged last minute with such a long off season. Pretty disappointing. Like, I won't blame Epic or Psyonix, right? Like, it's party time. But for something like you said that was meant to be the flagship for the off season, it's sort of just left us a really bad taste in our mouths leading into what is also a bad time for Rocket League as well. So it's sort of like, I don't know if it's the straw that broke the camel's back for some orgs in Australia that they're like, can't be bothered anymore. So yeah, I don't know if it's been like that internationally, but yeah, it's pretty bad here. FIFA.
I think just on that, so the football associations for each country were responsible for how they wanted to pick the rosters. So it should have been the Australian FA that ran that qualifier. So obviously teams, nations could do it however they wanted. They could do a qualifier, they could do selection, they could do part qualifier, part selection, whatever they wanted really. So it was on the individual football associations to, how they wanted to do it, I guess.
Is it anything like the Australian Breakdancing Association?
No, don't
All
use
right,
that.
relax.
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 Ray Gun's a national hero, mate. Thank you.
I mean, well, Arnold, going back to you, I guess you've brought yourself into the fold with the FIFAe World Cup, obviously with Team America. I know that you actually tweeted, I don't know, it was directly or indirectly saying, if your nation does call you up, you should probably play. Well, I guess what are your thoughts on that? Obviously, the whole situation was, for those who are unaware, it was assumed that it was going to be Dan Atomic and First Killer.
Was it announced in some way, or it wasn't?
It was already announced.
It's actually on the sheet. Yeah, it was fully announced on the lineup. Beast Mode is not a Saudi enjoyer, not a Riyadh enjoyer. So it was going to be First Killer, and then there was a late change, and RMC, now Gen.G, have been picked up. So what are your thoughts on?
Well, first off, thank you is my thought. I think the biggest thing is it's less of, I don't like how people are like blaming and dogpiling and all this stuff. Like, I'm sure people have very valid reasons for why they went or did not go. I just think that, if the team was part of an org maybe, or had like good people that they trusted to kind of have their ear, they could have talked to them and kind of let them know like how important this is, how great of an opportunity this could be. I'm not saying it will be, and who knows what this will be like, but this is kind of a very meaningful step longer term that really can establish yourself and the sport in a big way, right? And like, there's kind of a term that you have in traditional sports, like you want to leave the sport better than when you came in, and kind of that feeling that there's this ecosystem, and by you participating in these things that build the ecosystem, you're contributing not just to your success, but every other future kid's success that wants to be like Zen or Redos. I gotta stop saying Zen. I gotta start saying our team. Sorry, bro.
Because our team sucks. We're all about Zen.
No, I love our team. I think our team is gonna surprise a lot of people. But anyway, but one of the things is like, it's so important. I feel like it was a missed opportunity, and I think when people look back, and who knows, maybe they were right, and maybe this one, it won't be anything. But if this does become a big thing, and when you're old like me and 40 years old, and you think about stuff, you regret less the things that like you fucked up on, or sorry, you messed up on, but more the things that like you didn't do, right, and that you could have done. And I always tell the players, and they never listen to me, but like, I remember when I was like 20, like I was an idiot. So like, I understand where they're coming from, but I think regret minimization is a really great way to live your life. And I feel that a lot of pros don't quite understand how big this could be.
I think from an English perspective, I don't know whether this is I don't know whether because football is so massive in England and the World Cup like means everything. I don't know whether this is just like hyperbole just in England, but like for me, this going to represent, the same body that the English football team represents, right? We're here at Wembley, like tomorrow we're going to be on the pitch and things like that. Like, I think it just seems to me that, and maybe it's just because America, has different sports, it's not as big.
They have their world
But it just seems,
championships inside America. I don't know if you heard about it. They don't even
NBA
need
World
to leave.
Champions.
They don't need to go anywhere to
But-
be world champions.
Yeah, I just don't know whether it just seems insane to me that you would turn that down. And as soon as I approached all the England guys that I approached before, this was before Worlds, right? I had a short list of players that I spoke to, and every one of them said yes, they would love to be involved, and not one of them thought they were getting paid, nothing. They just wanted to wear their country's shirt and go and represent England, which I think is which I think it's a different type of passion. So maybe it's just because football is not as big, and every year we have the hope that England are going to bring it home, and we never do. But it just seems like a special. It seems special, this tournament, to us, and maybe we're just overinflating it a little bit because of our own bias, I guess. But it seemed insane to me that you would turn this down. I guess.
Okay, let's get another opinion on that exact topic then. Ferra, did you have any concerns when you put together the France team that somebody might turn it down? Was that a thought in the back of your mind or anything like that?
No, I mean, I think. So you touched on something actually that I disagree with. Is like, I feel like this specific event is made for selections. Like, I don't want to see another vitality run at this. I don't want to see another, like, it's if we allow qualifiers, in a sense, I'm not saying I'm allowing, but like, I feel like a FIFA tournament, just like it works in sport, should be selection based. Because when you start having qualification process with the way esports work right now, you're gonna be having issues with contracts and players having to play with their own teammates. So say you have Vitality who's full French, they probably would have had to play the qualifiers altogether, even if, which maybe is not the case, but even if them being together would not have been the most competitive duo in France possible. And on the other hand, if you're a French player and you're really good and you're the only French person on your team, you cannot participate in the qualifier, even if you're the best in the world, technically, which makes it very hard for you to access this specific tournament, which is why I think actually having a selection based, going on other criteria than just a qualifier makes it better for this specific tournament, because it's actually representing a country and not just a team, so you actually have to be the best of your country and not the best the best team, if that makes sense. And no, I did not have any doubt. And actually when the way we actually did, because I was given the opportunity by the French Federation, and I obviously accepted it, because I feel like I share the same passion as you do, Jeff, when it comes to that. I think it's a cultural difference between Europeans and how they see it, and you see it with the German national team as well. They all post their pictures with the jersey. For them, it's really important. But no, like for me, when I choose the players, first off, I actually picked 6 players to run private tryouts that actually were supposed to be public, but we could not make them public for a reason I won't go into. And all of them actually participated into a full week of tryouts, which is actually a quite heavy in schedule, in addition to their scrims with their teams. And a lot of them were actually conducting tryouts at the same time, which actually is a lot of Rocket League at the same time. But all of them actually took part of it, and just wanted to be part of the team at the end, and it just they all put the effort in just to be just to have the chance to wear the French jersey, pretty much, and actually be able to represent the French team and the French community on stage. And
isn't that kind of a qualifier that you did though, with that sort of? I mean, it's a different type of qualifier, but it's
yes,
it's
and
a
qualifier. It's a closed qualifier. It's not open to everyone. It's just like
I mean,
Yeah, you
yes
only a
and no.
select
Yeah,
few people.
yes and no, because I mean, that's in a way that's why because I pretty much had the choice. My federation told me if I want to pick 3 or 4 players, I could just pick them. But I wanted to have a process in mind. So for future years, if I am still at the lead of the team or if someone else is, there is kind of a process in place already. And the process being, if you're good, you make the shortlist, and by being in the shortlist, you're gonna have the opportunity to. So by being good, I mean if you have good results throughout the year, you're gonna end up in the shortlist. If you're in the shortlist, you're gonna have the opportunity to prove yourself on the field, and based on my own criteria, which usually is going to be, how you play, how you communicate with your teammates. Because what I did is I had 2 computers, the both of the voice comms, and I was listening to both of it at the same time in a way, and I was recording one of them and stuff like that. So just so I could hear them talk to each other and swap teams and swap notes. So they all had the opportunity to play with everyone. They all had the same chance. I tried to make it as fair as possible. So obviously I have my own bias. I come from a team. I have a French player in my own country team, but I guess you cannot ever escape any bias as as in every country. If you pick someone to pick the team, is gonna have bias. But I try to limit that as much as possible, just so as many players as I could get the chance to show up and play and prove that they can actually get in. But I wouldn't call that a qualifier. I would just say it's an opportunity for them to, if they crush the tryout, they win every game possible, and they're the perfect teammates. I have no reason to not pick them for the national team.
Yeah,
Much.
you could say that at that point they're qualified to participate, or sort of like they've got
Yes,
sufficient qualifications,
Sufficient qualifications. I like that. I mean, you guys have all spoken about the importance of, I guess, this event, obviously partnered with FIFA. And Arnold, you spoke about, I guess, where this could lead. Do you think that, when we look at, again, I guess, Rocket League as a, sustainable esport, the future of Rocket League, is this not the saving grace, but is this kind of where Rocket League can find its own mark in terms of, you look at the Olympics, potentially, including esports 2032, I think is kind of what's touted. Now we've got FIFA, including esports into their kind of brand. Is that, I guess, the saving grace that Rocket League is, that different esport? It's not a shooter. It's E for everyone. It's sport based. It's different to the other top esports.
It can become a sport, right? With this kind of stuff, to me, it's like it's what happens in sport. It's like, we have a World Cup. We're gonna represent our own countries. We're gonna like just like there is Champions League in football and the actual World Cup. To me, this is what's gonna separate us from other esports. And obviously, there has been some communication hiccups. I don't know on which side it is, but the tournament hasn't happened yet, and I believe it's gonna be a huge. I wouldn't say. I think it's going to be a huge success, and I know from all of the interactions I have with people, and all of the noise I see, especially on French Twitter and stuff. A lot of people are waiting for it, are expecting it. They want to see France versus Morocco. They want to see I don't know, Brazil against any country. Just like in the World Cup, they want to see their own version of Germany Brazil, where it's like 7-1 for Germany. They want to see some storyline they can get attached to that's not actually tied to the usual stuff, which is clubs and orgs, which we don't have right now. But that's what makes the sport good. It's like, okay, on one side you have the Champions League, Real Madrid, Barcelona, and they all join up together to make the Spanish team, and they win the Euros, and then everyone can actually enjoy the tournament together, whereas the rest of the year they're rivals, kind of.
Yeah, I think kind of going on that, I think this is really big. I mean, we had players that played in the Asian games. Just to provide context, especially to the Rocket League crowd who probably didn't watch it. We had a couple players. League of Legends was in the Asian games, which is like the Asia Olympics. And, both Chovy and Ruler, our League of Legends squad, were in the Asian games. They won gold, and now they're exempt from military service, right? Like, because Korea has mandatory military service, right? Like, if you think about like how that changes their entire life, and then to have in the North America side people making decisions saying like, oh, whatever, I think that's kind of disrespectful to like how much people care about this stuff, right? And that's the one thing. And I actually think it's less to do with the players. I think I've heard they're like really good people. And I mean, I know FK and he's a really good person. I just I have regrets. I'm saying, oh, maybe I should have reached out and, try to just jump in, but I felt like it wasn't my place. Because this stuff is really important. Like, you don't get this opportunity that many times. Like, who knows? The way things are going in Rocket League, it might all be over. There might only be like 2 people on this call next year.
Especially in big nations like USA and France, because when the next one rolls around, are you really confident you're going to make the roster? Like when you get the call, that could be once in a lifetime for some nations. Others seems like a lock. I mean, Morocco are probably thinking, we got this. Like, let's just run this trio for the next few years. But yeah, it hasn't happened. I was actually just trying to look up when the other events are happening, because there's other FIFA events. I believe there's eFootball, and is there Football Manager as well?
So Football Manager's already been.
Football Manager's happened. Wait, can we watch it? Can we see the production and see what's going on? And
the production was actually pretty good. It took place in Liverpool a couple of months back. The eFootball one is taking place straight after Rocket League.
Right after Rocket League.
The week after, yeah.
But I mean, compared to those esports, esports. Obviously, Rocket League is the big title for the FIFA thingy, and I mean, hopefully, a lot of people will tune in to watch and actually see good content and good production and good matchup, I guess. But I have no doubt on it. I think it's going to be really good, and I think with the efforts of all of the really invested federations, because some of them do not care, I guess, but as Jeff is pointing out, they're at Wembley. I think the German team is doing content as well. We are doing content. A lot of federations do put a lot of effort into this. So it's bringing a lot of new people into the scene. It can end up being I wouldn't say the savior of Rocket League, but like the one positive of this year, like the one really really net positive of this year is like just we're able to have a national Cup of Nation tournament that is actually really, really successful.
I think as well, just you touched on the Olympics as well. The Olympics is coming next year. It's it's a separate event, Olympic esports. They voted on it this year. So that's coming 2025. So I'll be very surprised if Rocket League is not included in that. And we obviously already had the Commonwealth Games that Rocket League was included in. Obviously maybe not the same stature as the Olympics, I suppose, because it's not as many countries, but I think that was still a really cool event. And yeah, if we're involved in the Olympics, we're involved with FIFA, I don't see a reason why. We're very much on the sport route then, aren't we, rather than esport, I guess.
Well, I hope they're involved, because I mean, last time we had esports Olympics, everybody thought Rocket League would be front and center, and we were kind of like the show match, the side thing.
iPhone archery or something like that.
it was KC against Gen.G actually, but I think it was before Ferra's time. It was before you.
That was not technically Olympics, right? It was just a show match to actually.
It was esports Olympics. There were esports like the archery game, the canoeing game. I can't remember.
I remember that.
Crazy.
I went and played a couple of them. They were awesome. They were good.
Yeah. Hey, tic-tac-bow is popping off. We were watching that on the A stage while Rocket League is over there on the backstage, kind of like side stage. Man, tic-tac-bow is wild. I couldn't believe it. What a game. I was on the edge of my seat.
Yeah, it was look, I definitely agree where I think that's kind of, I don't want to say it's our saving grace, but that's certainly a bit of a lifeline for Rocket League in that we do have that sport crossover. The Olympics is looking to get involved. FIFA is looking to get involved. So at least there's still a couple of things on the horizon to look forward to. I'm sure everyone tuned into the FIFA World Cup. Hopefully we can make that a success. Guys, we don't want to keep you until we know that you guys are very busy people, but I would love to perhaps get, I guess, your final thoughts from each of you. Maybe this is your clippable moment. Maybe this is the Tim Sweeney
we'll send these clips directly to Tim.
We're sending all these to his email. We'll find it. We'll find his contact information. Maybe just like where I guess you're at on an individual level from your own standpoint. If things don't change, what you'd love to see, or just your final thoughts, I guess, on the current state of Rocket League. whoever wants to start, that'd be great.
Can I ask a question, like to the other
Yes,
guys?
absolutely.
I obviously the rumor is that there won't be sponsors on the decals next season. Rumor in air quotes. How big is that for you guys? Like for Arnold, how massive? You talked about for Mobile One, you know, they want to see it in game and things like that. How massive is losing that for? I guess for the sustainability of you know, each of you for Rocket League.
Yeah, it's huge, right? And so now it's how do we get as much exposure even to the decals that we will make, and kind of like, so if the quality of impressions is lower because the decals no longer have like full-on branding, we need to increase the number of impressions that we can get with whatever decal we do make that is still alludes to, you know, the brand. The second piece is we need to do a lot more outside of the sport, whether it's content creators, whether it's, you know, making stuff in the game, and a bunch of other ways to like make up for it. So it was not the easiest conversation. It was pretty brutal actually, and it's brutal because the hard part is more you're going in there with a trusted partner, and it's hard to come up with the logic when they ask why does this happen, and I'm like, they just decided it. So that's the hardest part. It'd be one thing if there was kind of a logical flow to why these decisions happened, but it's more like, oh, they just decided they don't want to do it. And, you know, it's not replaced with, but there's this new shiny thing, right? It's more, nah, I don't feel like it, right? So on both sides, I'm getting the, I don't feel like it, you know? So like, and I think that's where the most difficult part of the conversation is. It's less about facing challenges and figuring out a solution. It's more, when a client asks you why and you can't answer, you look like an idiot.
Yep.
Yeah, I think for us, obviously we don't have skin share in the game at the moment, but when we were looking at the option of getting back into Rocket League, having sponsor decals included, like in team decals, was one of the driving factors for us as well. We saw it is something that set Rocket League apart from other esports. And, you know, if we do get decals in game, like that was something that then we can take to our current sponsors and either get a better contract for them, or we can use it as like a really good tool to approach new sponsors, right? A lot of non-endemic brands in Australia are looking to get into gaming. They don't really understand esports, but something like that is super easy to help them picture what it's going to look like in the game and exactly like explain what it's going to look like stuff. So yeah, it's super damaging for us as well, even not having skin share in the game, because it's something that keeps us reinvesting back into the scene in the hope that we would get there in the end.
Yep. Well,
Yeah, that's certainly the biggest rumored change that yeah, I think it's an obvious one that will take a hit just financially for orgs. But yeah, I guess back to our final pitches. I'd love to email Tim Sweeney with 4 monologues of what you've got. Where are you at, Arnold? You can kick us off. Give us another one. You've already done a few clippable moments, but where's Gen.G at? If nothing changes, what's going to happen? What do you need to see from Rocket League as an esport to keep, you know, investing what you're doing?
Look, if I had a conversation with Mr. Sweeney, and I start calling him Mr. Sweeney just in case he does watch, and you know, he's too powerful for me to ignore. You know, I would say Rocket League is sitting on a gold mine. They have probably the biggest opportunity to level up their esport, than any other title that I know of today. You know, I think, and especially with, you know, as the game continues to develop, and you know, rumors of more development coming around the game and more integration within Fortnite, I don't think that they should take the Fortnite model, which didn't work, and apply it to Rocket League. I think they should create a model specific to Rocket League and use that as a way to innovate just the same way that they've innovated across the board with UEFN, with, you know, integrations with Travis Scott, like whatever it is, they're a winning company, right? They win across the board. I wish they would try to apply that winning mentality to figuring this out and leading the industry with esports, because they have the opportunity to do so. They have the opportunity to be the biggest Olympic title, They have the opportunity to have players go up there and literally wear gold medals as representatives of their country and kind of meaningfully move the sport and esports as an industry forward. And I would hope that they see that instead of kind of holding on to a view that is honestly a little bit dated, right? Which is kind of the old Epic Fortnite model. So I wish they would kind of, the facts have changed, the data has changed. They should kind of take this with a fresh look instead of just applying their old biases into the sport.
I love that.
I'm just gonna keep mine short and sweet. I think. I guess my takeaway would be for them is work with us. We're not the enemy. There might have been some shit orgs that have fucked over players in Fortnite in the past. That maybe that's why you don't want to work with orgs. But we're not the enemy. We're trying to make this work. We're trying to make the esport great for everyone. Epic included. So yeah, just work with us.
Yeah, I guess my closing statement would be just a conversation with Epic would be awesome. Like just to have one message from them would be awesome. I mean, just to open up any sort of dialogue in terms of like transparency of what the next year looks like, even if it's bad news for us. Like as a minor region, it's getting harder and harder to justify reinvesting to compete with these like bubble NA orgs and EU orgs coming into Australia. And I do it because I want oceanic representation, not just players, but for an org for our domestic fans to get behind as well, right? We talked about teams and stuff like that before and having like brand loyalty from our fans. Australia's a very big sporting nation and we love to get behind a team. We all like to rally around someone. So I'd hate to lose that in Rocket League. But yeah, I think moving forward for the Chiefs, like we're already looking at what 2025 is going to look like for us. It's different to what I thought a month ago. Like I was super all in a month ago. Now I'm a little bit more hesitant. And obviously as the conversations like this happen, it sort of steers me more and more like away from the sport, sadly, even though it's my favorite esport. And I think like my heart's telling me to stay in it, but my brain is telling me to reinvest elsewhere, right? Until we can see sort of a bit of a roadmap from Epic. So just a little bit of transparency teams would go a long, long way.
Ferra, do you have a final thought?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think Rocket League. Okay, to be honest, I think Rocket League is one of the most repetitive games you can have, and it's been out for 10 years. We need to give players a reason to stay around and get involved and get excited. And I mean, you have the opportunity to turn this into a sport. Why go in the opposite direction? You have all of the esports brand actually in the world. I'm assuming like if the ecosystem was successful or like in favor of orgs, I'm assuming everyone will join. But right now that's not the case. And if everyone would join, everyone would be able to build storylines to I don't know, make people dream, make the kids want to play the game to join a team or another instead of just joining Hogan mode or another.
What are you talking
bringing
Hogan
up
mode?
Hogan mode
I'm
for?
sorry to cut off your outro here, but you just bring it up Hogan mode in a negative context, and I will not stand for it anymore.
What is
I
this
cannot
beef?
hear this.
it's the only non-branded team name I can remember of because of how successful they were. Or the leftovers, if you want. The leftovers, or, you don't.
Yeah.
I don't know. That does not, excite anyone. I think what people want is just, when I started playing, I wanted to, if as a kid you watch sport, you want to join, I don't know, the Lakers because you want to be a basketball. You don't want to. You want to be LeBron James. You want to be whoever. Let's make it the same for Rocket League. Let's have, star players, star teams, stuff that people can actually, relate to, follow the stories of, and maybe join one day. And we do that by, allowing orgs more and having an ecosystem that is very friendly to orgs and very friendly to people to third-party companies that want to invest in your own game. Like a lot of people are ready to pay money to just recruit players to play your own game. Help them. work against them. I feel like.
You're
mean,
gonna.
that's
I like
just-
that, except for one thing. You're gonna need a new team though. You keep. Yeah, you got Hogan mode doesn't work in your
Okay,
analogy. That's the only problem. I wanted to leave a gap there so the clean clip can happen before I like.
What's
come in
the
here.
what was the
Use
Randy
Saw or
Gibbons?
something. I hate Saw. Saw is
Randy
the worst
Gibbons
name to
River
cast.
Rats.
Okay.
He's,
Randy Gibbons River Rats is a decent
go
one. I
easy.
don't mind that one. I wouldn't mind if they were still in the scene. But Saw is a like pointless. That's a boring name. Why do
no
they keep bringing it back?
man. I don't know. I mean,
Yeah, but Hogan mode. Listen, if Hogan mode had a team in the NBA, I think they would be pretty popular. I reckon everybody would want to see them play.
I mean,
as long as they
to
got
be
the
honest,
star quality.
at the end of the day, this is what Europe is gonna look like this season. We only have like three org teams, I think.
It's just gonna be Hogan mode 1,
So-
Hogan mode 2, Hogan
Yeah,
mode 3.
Don't tempt me with a good
Oh,
time.
It's perfect.
Oh dear.
So, but yeah, one day maybe, I don't know. It's not likely. Right now the direction is not the one we want. So maybe, as Arnold said, we're only gonna be 2 in the next call. But I hope not, because Rocket League has. I mean, it's the best game. It's the best game in the world. I would not have invested 10 years of my life if it was not. It's the best game. Everyone can get into it so easily. My parents watch it, and they cannot understand anything else to any other game ever. So, Rocket League is easy to pick up. It's easy. Make
It's a
it a
gold
sport.
mine. It's sitting on a
Yeah.
gold mine, as Arnold said.
Yeah, sitting on a gold mine. Well, that's going to wrap it up, everybody. We appreciate you guys for watching and listening. If you guys missed any part of this, be sure to check it out on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Another special thank you to all 4 of our guests who joined us today. Ferra,
Unreal.
Arnold, Brendy, and Jeff, of course. I mean, super appreciative. I think this was super.
Come on again, please.
I think it was eye-opening for a lot of people to be able to just like listen to you guys, listen to this perspective. Especially Jeff brought up earlier. He's like, orgs aren't just mismanaging their money and stuff, and you're not just like begging for Epic's help and all that. So it's a great perspective to hear from the orgs as well. So thank you once again, and we'll see you guys all the next Shotcast. We appreciate you, and we'll see you soon. Bye.
Bye.